Sometimes that backspace key is my favorite key on the keyboard. And why? Because I write a word and I don't like it. And so I go back and I backspace and I try a different word and then I don't like that one. And so I backspace again and I try another one and then I try it again. And why do I do this? Why do I like rewrite something over and over and over again? Well, it's because I want to find the perfect word, right? The problem is that there is no real perfect word. I mean, sure, we want to be as precise as possible, and we want to have, the vocabulary be what it should be in our novels. But honestly, you can keep changing the word over and over again, and it's never really going to be the perfect word, if there even is a perfect word. But the reason we do that, the reason I do that, and probably the reason that you do that, is because we all have this internal editor in our mind that is trying to tell us that it's not good enough, right? It's not good enough. We need to change it. We need to fix it. And that internal editor can be a bit of a bully, and we can't allow that. So we're going to talk today about how to turn off that internal editor. We want it to come back later, but we want to turn it off while we're writing. So let's talk about that today.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia. I am a women's fiction author and also here on Fridays to give you a few writing tips that hopefully will help you to write your book, create a better story. Okay, so let's talk today then about that internal editor. First of all, who is that internal editor? Where does it come from? My first inclination is to say, really, who cares? I don't really care where it came from. It could have come from parents, teachers, who knows, an editor, an agent, somebody who said that your writing was not good enough, that something was not good enough. And you could spend time trying to figure it out. Okay, where did this come from? Why do I feel this way? It could be helpful in writing, and it could be helpful in other areas of your life too, if you wanted to spend the time to figure that out. But the point is that we don't need it now, right? We don't need it when we're first creating. And one of the things that we can say to this internal editor is that, thank you, but I really don't need these comments right now. I really don't need your help right now. I will need it later. So don't go away completely, but I don't need you right now, right? So we want to make sure that we're getting rid of it and not using it, because wherever it came from, it is helpful in some way, but not if it's criticizing everything you write. Not if every single word that you're putting down is making you feel like, oh no, this is bad. This sentence is terrible. This, of course, it's going to be at the very beginning. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be exact, because it's a first draft and you can't expect it to be. Neither can your internal editor expect it to be. So we just really want to push that editor to the side a little bit until we need them. Okay, so one thing you need to remind yourself about is that you have to write that imperfect first draft. You really do. You have to write it, because if you don't ever write the imperfect first draft, you have nothing to edit. You have nothing to fix. So just write it however it comes out. Write that first draft as terrible as you think it is, right? Even if your internal editor is criticizing you and you can't shut them up, then what you want to do is you just want to keep writing. Yeah, I know, I'm writing a terrible draft. I know, editor. Okay, yeah, I know, this stinks. This is horrible. It's the worst thing I've ever written in my whole life, but I'm still going to write it, because again, you can't edit anything if you don't have it written. You have to have your book written before you can do anything. So Amante said this, right? She coined the write the shitty first draft. It's because you have to write that shitty first draft. And then once you do, you're going to go back and you're going to fix it. So just remind yourself of that. Don't feel bad that it's terrible. Be okay with it being terrible. In fact, tell yourself, I have to write this terrible thing first, because that's how I'm going to fix it. That's how I'm going to have something to fix. Okay, something else that I suggest that you do is turn off the computer editor, right? The word editor. I actually just this year subscribed to Grammarly. I never really cared for it because it tells you to change things that, as a fiction author, you don't need to change everything. You could have grammatically incorrect language. You could have fragments, especially if you have dialogue, right? That's the way people speak. They don't actually speak in complete sentences always. So, you want to have that, and Grammarly and all these things are going to tell you that you're wrong and that you are, and it's not good for you as a writer to see that as you're typing. All those little red and blue marks and the underlines and all that is just enough to, to drive you crazy, to stress you out, because you're looking at your screen and you're like, oh my God, I made all these errors. I made all this. I need to change everything. Every sentence is bad. So turn that off while you're doing your rough draft. Again, you're going to turn it back on later. It's going to point out all these things, and then you can go back and fix those things, edit those things that you think really need to be changed. Because again, I hit ignore on a lot of that Grammarly stuff because it's just, no, I want it to say, I want, this person to speak this way. I want this, to be not misspelled, of course, but, I want things to, or sometimes there's like missing words. I do that. Like, I don't know what's going on with my brain, but I'll miss an entire word. And I'm glad that Grammarly tells me, hey, you should have a to here. You should, you should have an and. That helps, but not when I am trying to craft a story, not when I'm trying to, be creative and build a story. I don't need to know all that. So turn it off, come back and turn it back on later when you're going to revise. Pausing for a second to let you know about a couple of courses that I've created. If you're a beginning writer and you want some help with your book, I just want to let you know that I do have a basic course on how to write, and I'm going to post it below. And if you're not a beginning writer, but you are more established and you're ready to publish your work, you have your novel written, I also have a publishing course, and I will also post it below. So take a look at it. Maybe there'll be just what you're looking for. All right, let's go back to the video now. Okay, so long ago in, the Ice Ages, there used to be these things called typewriters where writers, you've probably seen pictures of writers, right, with these old typewriters. And then you've also seen pictures of little scrunched up pieces of paper just littering the floor around the writer. Why is that? Well, because when they had to type everything on a typewriter, so typewriters evolved. At first there was no way to correct it. The only way to correct something was to actually pull out the piece of paper, start all over again, and and try to get it right this time. Then as they evolved, they had some erase keys and stuff that you could fix, but still it was a big pain. I mean, we're super lucky now, right, that we don't have to do that as writers. However, one suggestion that I have is, there's no backspace on a piece of paper, right? There's no key, so you can write, and it actually helps you to flow, your writing to flow a little better, because that you're going to fix it later, right? If you're handwriting your scene, then you're going to type that into a computer later. So it's almost like the pressure is off from having to come up with that perfect word, because you're going to go over it again. Also, when you're handwriting it, you're writing a lot slower. It depends on how fast you type. I'm not a fast typist, but I can still type pretty fast. I can type as fast as I'm thinking, at least. And so there's a lot of room for error. You hit the wrong key, you write down the immediate thing that you're thinking, and then you go back and rethink, and oh no, that's not really what I wanted to say, or that's not really the way I wanted to describe this. And then I go back, and right. So you can do that because you're going so fast. But when you're writing, handwriting on a piece of paper, you're actually, you can't write as fast. So you're actually thinking slower, and you're writing slower, and you're more likely to actually come up with the word that you want to come up with, a sentence. You're actually more likely to say it the way that you really want to say it, because you're thinking a little bit more. So if you are, if that will slow down your internal editor, because you're actually not making those errors. You're not writing something that your internal editor is going to say that was a stupid thing. Right? So that might be an option as well. It's just if you need to, write it slow, right? Write it on a piece of paper and then transfer it onto your computer afterwards. Or if the thought of that drives you crazy, because I know for me, I like being able to type what I'm thinking and not have to slow down and write on a piece of paper. I only wrote my very first novel on notebook paper, and that's because I had to. I was actually writing that book while I was on a cruise ship, and I was writing a story about someone being on a cruise ship. Okay, so it was way before, computers, you could take all this stuff with you, and it would have been out in the middle of nowhere anyways. So I wrote it on a notepad, and when I came home, I redid it. But since then, I have not done that. Okay. So if the thought of writing everything down and slowing it down drives you nuts, you can also do the opposite. It's actually speed it up. A lot of writers do really well with having writing sprints. So you set your clock, for whatever, however long you want to write, right? So maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. I like 50 minutes. Just personally, it's just the one that I like because it works really well for me. I can write for 50 minutes. I can actually sit for like 3 hours and write. So 50 minutes is probably the minimum that I can do. So you write for whatever minutes you set, and then you take a little break. So for example, for me, 50 minutes I write, 10 minutes I just take a little break, just go walk, take the dogs outside, go get a drink of water, just to stand up for many reasons, right? It's good to do that, just to stand up, get some circulation. But what it forces you to do too is you're only writing during that time. You're not social media, you're not doing it, you're not correcting anything. You're just telling yourself for that. But I'm telling you, 50 is too long without correcting anything or without like changing, then just do shorter, do 20 minutes. But say during these 20 minutes, I am only writing, I'm not correcting anything, I'm not fixing anything, I'm just getting all my ideas down, I'm writing this scene as fast as I can. So writing sprints sometimes can help because you're just focused on just the writing part. You're not researching, not social media, not correcting, not editing, not doing anything except just writing. So that could be, an option. Maybe slow it down, maybe speed it up. Okay, and then another thing that you can do is to use placeholders for specific words. So let's say, one of the reasons you delete, I delete a word over and over and over again. It's like, I want the right word. That's not the word. I want to be specific. I want a detail. I want a specific detail, and I can't think of it. And so I'll put something down. It's like, no, that's not really what I meant. So erase that. And then try a different one, right? So what you can do is just put a placeholder. So maybe put, spec for specific or something, right? Or detail, so that I know that I need to add a detail there. I need to come back to that, and I need to add a more specific detail. So when I am revising, I can come back and put that, then take the time and think and say, what is exactly the word that belongs here? What is it that I want to say? So having those placeholders keeps you from having to go back, edit, re-edit again. You know you're going to come back. So you just keep writing, keep getting the idea, the scene down, keep getting your thoughts on paper, and then when you come back and revise, you're going to find those placeholders and of course change them. Okay, so the thing to remember here is that the internal editor is not bad. It's not really something that's trying to tell you you're a terrible writer. It's not really something that's trying to criticize you. Call it whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's just your intuition that's trying to tell you, no, you know that this is not right, right? You do need to change that. So what you want to do is make good use of it, right? So instead of it interrupt your writing, making you less creative and feeling, attacked by your own mind that's telling you to stop and to change this, you want to just make use of it. Know that this is something that's trying to protect you. You need it. You need the internal editor because you don't want to send something out that is not ready. That's not, that's poorly written. We don't want that. So we need that. We just need it at the right time. So what we want to make sure is that, be grateful that we have that we have the, the ability to notice when something is just not right, or when the scene is wrong, or when the sentence or the grammar or whatever isn't working. And make use of that when you need it. So that's what we want to remember. So give your internal editor the proper place and your creative side the proper place, and you will have a nicely written story and a nicely edited story as well. So I hope you find this advice helpful, and that you don't feel so bad about your internal editor after watching this video. Okay, so thank you for being here. Please come back next Friday for my next tip. Please hit that like button and the share button, share it with friends, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and I look forward to having another discussion with you. Leave me some comments so we actually could have a discussion, and then I'll see you next week.